All right. Thanks very much, Charlie, and welcome everyone. Really good to have you here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy days to join us. We're going to explore today, as Charlie was saying, a little bit about our roles and how they kind of relate to who we are, what drives us, and what happens when they change, how that affects the way we view the future. So that's what we're going to be having a look at today. As Charlie was saying as well, joined by the fantastic Francesco, who's going to be co-facilitating this with me. Thanks so much for jumping in. So we're going to get started today by just doing a little bit of an icebreaker. I'm going to think back to, back to when we were younger. We're going to have a little look at, what were our childhood dreams? We're going to do that. Let's get started. What was our childhood dreams? So I'm going to hand over to you, Francesca. You want to tell us a little bit about your experience?
I apologize. Sometimes, even when you have an Apple device, tech fails, so I got disconnected. I think this is my clue to start my bit. Awesome. So thankfully, there are three of us on the call, and all of the three know the flow. But my clue now is to tell you, hello, I'm Francesco Bianchi. I know Charlie and Marcus for different reasons. I work with both of them in different spaces, and I'm absolutely delighted to work with them today for the first time together. Just in case you're wondering, Gemma is okay. She just couldn't be here today. So nothing bad happened to her. I'm going to inherit this fabulous work, starting with the first question. I'm going to invite you to think about when you were children, when you were really, really small, when you had all your life ahead of you. You still have a long life, but at that point you had all of your life. So very little to look back at. And you could imagine to be whatever you wanted to be. So what it is, the thing or the person or the character that you were dreaming to be as a grown-up. Being a good facilitator, I'm gonna lead by example. I'm gonna share my story, who I wanted to be as a child. I wanted to be a video game developer. I literally saw my first video game, Pong, when I was 5, and I got immediately hooked into it. I was dreaming to have a console, never had one until I was like 18, and I could pay for my own. But I got a computer pretty soon, and I said, I can use it to code my games. I never managed to code any game, but I became a software developer, and that shaped the first 30-something years of my life. At a certain point, I discovered that what I wanted to be was not who I really wanted to become. There was a different driving force behind my desire to wanted to code video games. And as silly as it may sound, my love for becoming a software developer started with my love of pushing buttons. Not big red scary buttons, just buttons on a keyboard. I love keyboards. And I love them because I feel it's like magic. It's like a wizard, tracing runes and symbols in the air. They can make new words appear. In my mind, of a 5 years old, typing on a keyboard was the same of casting spells and creating fantasy words. Now, my question for you is, who did you want to be when you were a children? And what was the driving force behind that? Can you recognize it? And if you feel comfortable, come off mute and share it with us while Marcus does some of his magic.
I can go.
Please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alina. I'm based out of Dublin, Ireland. So when I was being asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I used to tell I used to be a very famous artist. So that was an interesting thing. And I wanted to be a very famous artist as I, grew up. So that was like, that was my dream. So somehow I had this idea that I used to be one. I don't know in which life. But at the same time, I wanted to be one as well.
Okay. If you were to name one driving force, what do you think that could have been? What did you love about that?
I just love the nature. I just love the things, anything that I could make, I love the rocks. I loved the things that I would find, like, just like a magpie, something shining or something different, even a stone with a different shape. So it was just and I still have that. It hasn't gone away. I still collect stones when I go on the walks or pick up the stuff that might seem like trash to somebody else, but I decorate it,
Thank you, Lena. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, for being the first brave to share. Who else would like to share their story, their
I'll
child's
go.
dream? Please.
Yeah. So my video's a bit off. So yeah. I kind of wanted to be something a little bit traditional. I actually saw pictures of the moon landing, and I wanted to be an astronaut because I really wanted to explore. And it was later on afterwards, but I really just wanted to explore. And I've always had a connection with the moon, and every time it's full moon and things, I always kind of have a bit of a ritual around it. I don't know what it is. I just seem very connected to the moon, and it was because I was shown these pictures of the moon landing, and then I really got into science fiction. And actually, the driving force for me really was reading, and I started to read more and more about space travel and science fiction, and I really got into it. And it was a love of something different, of something beyond where I was, and that was it, the unknown, really, and that you could do anything you wanted because there were no rules, right? If you wanted to travel to another world, you could, because the book said you could, and I really loved that. So I just read like crazy up until about 14, and then I stopped. But that was it for me. There was just, you could travel wherever you want, see whoever you want, meet amazing creatures and people, so that drove me for quite a long time as a child.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing with us this wonderful journey. Thank you. Who else would like to add their story?
I don't mind going.
Please.
Hi, I'm Becca. So I really wanted to be a marine biologist when I was young. I'm actually an agile coach, so I don't know how that happened. Probably because I realised I wasn't quite clever enough to be a marine biologist. But the reason I was sort of so interested in that was because I was really curious about how underwater world worked, and being able to float there, just observing animals and feeling quite free. So that's me.
Thank you, Becca. And I think I know you well enough to say that you would have been more than smart enough, but that's okay. You can keep your judgment of yourself. Who else would like to go on and take a little bit of support also? Looking for at least another person.
I'm happy to jump in if that's
Noel.
okay.
Yeah.
When I grow up, I want to be a stuntman.
Oh.
So yeah, there's more recently there's a little bit of Spider-Man creeping into that as well, but primarily, yeah, that's my dream, stuntman.
Okay, Mr. Stuntman. And what's the passion that is pushing you in that direction?
I think there's an element of danger, of breaking the rules, of a little bit of not deception, but like there's an art there, isn't there, in terms of acting and yeah. And
Thank
like,
you.
how cool would it be just to be able to jump off a building?
Absolutely. And when you grow up, which is going to be in 20, 30 years, because you're still very, very young, maybe you may be hired to shot the next Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man probably 75 at that point.
I think I'll be 75 by then, but yeah.
Oh, you're still very young. Don't worry. You still have your full life ahead, as we all have. As we all have. Thank you for sharing. Maybe we have time for one last person to share their dreams with us. So we have time, but I'm not sure if we have another person.
Suzanne, I can go. Mine was to be a journalist, but then also I was pretty obsessed with animals, which I still love animals. We traveled a lot as a child, and I was always making them stop and take pictures of all the animals instead of looking at everything else when we were traveling. And I think what was driving me is a deep sense of empathy and just storytelling and curiosity. I think those were, for me, the big drivers.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I should not do two things at the same time, but I got a private message of someone who felt comfortable enough to share their dream, but not with everyone. So I'm going to share it for them. Someone just wanted to feel safe. And I would like for us to acknowledge that. And leaving some time to Marcus to elaborate on what safe can mean and bring that feeling to life for us. Thank you, anonymous contributor, for sharing that.
Sorry, what was that last one, Francesco? It's feeling safe, was it?
Yes, just feeling safe.
Just feeling safe, right.
Thank you, Marcus, for being such a talented artist and for sharing your talent with us. Thank you. Round of applause for our Marcus. Yes, no shame in saying that I'm a big fan, and he's the man who taught me how to draw. So I owe him quite a bit of my current self. Definitely, I now have a very different job than I used to have a while ago, and not what I was dreaming when I thought, oh, I'm going to become a software developer, a video game programmer. Marcus, what was your dream?
What was my dream growing up? So the earliest dream I have, which seems very odd looking back at it now, was to be a doctor. It was my first dream, which as you can see, I'm completely super the right person for it. That was first dream was to be a doctor. I was really obsessed with looking at sort of anatomy books and figuring out how the body worked. And I used to kind of think of very much what would be kind of the most valuable thing you could do. And at the time, my kind of thing in my childlike mind was to save a life, and I had a friend later on in life say, that's like the most selfish, unselfish desire I've ever heard of. You want to save a life for your own. So that was my childhood dream growing up.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you. Also, I know you'll share this picture with all of us later on. So we can go back and have, you know, a glimpse in our past, in the collective memories that we've shared. Now, I would be curious to know, if you don't mind dropping in the chat, how many of you have achieved, have stayed on the path that you had dreamt for yourself, and how many of you has instead diverged? So if you look back, if you look at where you are today and you look back at where you were, where you wanted to be, are you there? Are you close? Are you very, very far away? The first 3, 4, diverged, 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 diverged. Oh yeah, totally diverged. Okay, now we need to build a scale. Only 5%, 20%, but it's probably more in the space of 80 to 110%. Close by diverge, okay. Okay, so there's a statistic, very, very scientifically, I would say that about 5.73% of the population in this call got it. Like, you got it right, probably just by chance, I would say. I'm not a statistician, but I think it qualifies as pure absolute chance. So if you look at what we've already experienced in our lives, we are somehow already been trained. Life has trained us to change our path. Life is not what we want it to be. Doesn't mean that it's worse, it's just different. And yet now the pace of change is so fast that we don't accept it so easily. Well, it took us 20, 30, 40 years to develop the human beings and professionals that we are. Right now, the world of work is asking us to change constantly. If you are a software developer, you have to change JavaScript framework every 6 months. That was too fast for me. Now, if you have, regardless of what job you have, you need to change almost every 2-3 months. And that's scary. That's really, really scary. Keeping an eye on the chat. I worry today for my children, given the pressures. Yes. Before we can take care of our children, oxygen mask principle, we need to learn to take care of ourselves. How can we deal with the pressures? Something that we can do is to start learning more about us. That's what we are going to invite you to do in the next activity. As you can imagine, it's that moment in the call where we're going to send you in breakout rooms. Now, if you don't want to be part of a breakout room, it's going to be difficult to remove you from there, but we're going to put you in breakout rooms of 3 people each. So you have a chance to maybe almost disappear. But I would strongly, strongly, strongly invite you not to. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the power of this session. Now, watching Marcus drawing live is amazing, but that's not exactly why we are here. I'm going to just move. Perfect. Thank you. Working together and learning from each other and supporting each other. That's why we're here. We're going to do it in small groups so it feels safe. And we're going to do it visually because, of course, what other approach could you have thought about to receive from us? We're going to do it using a metaphor. Why metaphors? Because they help us abstracting a little bit our thoughts and making it feel safer. Whatever we're going to share, of course, will remain within these digital walls. Okay, it's up to you how much you want to share and how much you don't want to share. There is a recording going on, of course, but we will not distribute the mural. So whatever you're going to write in the mural, I'm going to share in a moment. We remain there only for the people in this call. Again, share as much as you want, as long as you feel 100% safe. I'm going to walk you through the activity now. I'm going to share my screen, the dreadful moment when that happens. There we go. You'll be invited to join a mural that looks a little bit like this. I'm going to zoom out. So you see there's a bunch of trees. You're in a forest. So you can feel fairly safe. You're going to pick a tree, the tree that has your name, well, kind of your name, being sent in breakout room. Each breakout room will have a number, okay? And each tree has a number. So if you're in breakout room 1, you'll go to 3 breakout room 1. If you're in breakout room 2, you'll go into 3 breakout room 2, and so on and so forth. I will not count all the 30 trees that we have, 30 plus 1. There's a special tree here that I'm going to use for explanation purposes. During the time, we'll ask you to think about some aspects of your life. What are the roots that nurture you? What feeds you? What excites you? What gives you energy? Think about that. Grab a post-it of your color. There's going to be 3 different colors. Grab it, drag it here, and start typing. What are your drivers? What motivates you? Why do you do what you do? This is your spine, what keeps you standing in front of adversities. When the winds blow strong, when you need to run, when you need to just stay there and be visible. What are the fruits that this has led to? What is your current role? what role have you just lost? And how can you learn from that to feed back into your energy to grow as a stronger, more beautiful, or magnificent tree? Checking the chat. Could someone please share the link to the mural, please, so that everyone can connect? I imagine that we are pretty comfortable using shared whiteboards. If you're not, on the top right, there's this button here called Outline. If you click it, it will appear, will give you a link to all the trees so that you can jump, let's say, to tree number 5, click it, and I jump to tree number 5. And then you can use zoom in and zoom out to navigate, to expand or not the zoom. Any question before we send you into the dark?
All back in here. Great. So I hope you had some good times in the break. I'd just like to have a little chat now. Any kind of observations you had from going through that exercise, looking at what inspires you, what's your core drivers, what roles have you lost, and how did that feed back in? Just anyone shout out.
I'd start. Just my main takeaway, what I really liked was how number 4, the roles that you've lost, links back in then to the roots. I thought that was really nice. I completely missed that at the beginning and only caught that towards the end. Really nice.
Brilliant. Yep. So that's something there. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. But thanks for that. No, any other thoughts or observations that you found during doing the tree exercise?
For me, it was the fact that you are doing something, but to be able to visualize it and link it, that what drives you within and what have you let go, and how it's serving you as well.
Absolutely.
So that's when, one for me that stood out was being savior and realizing you cannot be everybody's savior. And unsolicited coach, because when you have these, things, and you talk to somebody and suddenly you start being their coach and you realize you don't have to be coach, everybody's coach, and on being unsolicited unless until they ask for it. So that's been a great realization in the past 2 or 3 years, so.
Brilliant. And that came from a role changing, like you said. Any other of that? That's really great, share. Thank you for that. Any other observations from doing the tree exercise there?
I find it really difficult to think about what my core drivers were. I kind of seem to have lost that. That really, I'm still struggling with that, actually.
So you feel like you're not really sure of the relationship between sort of what nurtures you and your current role.
Yeah, I found that really difficult.
Interesting. So that's I think the next thing we go into may help you with that. Thanks for that, Kat. That's a really interesting observation there. Mario, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I do. Honest sharing, maybe not nice, but I got lost down a drain of. I've done a lot of work on my core drivers because of transactional analysis therapy, and I got lost in it. I just got lost in a negative world of core drivers and emotional triggers and childhood stuff, and I never came back to the surface to know what can help me in my career. Luckily, you pulled us back, so I got an interrupter there.
Interesting. So it kind of got stuck on the core drivers there. Can be a lot to unpack there. Absolutely. It can be really difficult to look at your core drivers. Suzanne saying in the chat, in our group, there was a lot of similarities in our paths and experiences. Is there anything you can elaborate on there, Suzanne? Anything in particular that stood out as being similar?
Not sure. Is my mic working?
Yes.
Hear me? Okay. It said it wasn't working. So, yeah, I think just our roles were very aligned, but we started with the roots and we realized there was a lot we could have finitized and grouped them, and a lot of overlap there, which kind of made sense when we went back to the roles, because the roles that we were in, you could see the connection. But then I think and my group can chime in here, we were all kind of mourning. There is some loss of some things that our roles have been evolving and shifting, and just with the industry changing, some things that bring us more joy that we don't get enough chance to do, or influences that are kind of putting more constraints or putting us in a box around the types of activities and things. So I just talked about, I do this activity where, you know, it's trying to find the things that you're really good at, but that also bring you joy, that can make an impact that a company or an organization is willing to pay for. And how do you do that regardless of some of those boundaries or constraints? So.
Absolutely, really love that. Thanks so much for expanding on that, Suzanne. So quick.
I'll just say as well, we talked about, we all have been with our companies for quite some time, and it's kind of helping to build those relationships to see where we can, you know, influence and push up and make that change for ourselves.
Absolutely, fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Neve. So I'm just going to ask everyone to flash. I'll just change my view here just so I can see everyone. Just flash the emoji up. If we look at this tree here, we've got our nutrients, we've got our sort of core here, and we've got what our current roles are. But then at some point, due to sort of us deciding to change it or life changing it for us, this sort of these roles kind of fall down, and they become our compass, which then loops back in. So who here finds at this point where, you know, your role changes quite scary, quite disorientating, quite fearful? If you agree with that, could you flash an emoji up in terms of if when you're forced to change a role, you find that quite difficult, quite challenging? Got one, got two, we've got a few flashing up here. Oh, got a screaming face. Very good. So one thing that when Gemma and I were, well, mostly Gemma, I have to give Gemma a lot of credit for this session, it was mostly her. We're talking about designing this session. It was this whole idea that basically this is a process that we all go through in life. Our roles change as we go through life. And one thing that can really happen when we have a role is we start to kind of have this view of things. We've got our roles, it's created briefcase here, our series of roles. And we kind of view it like this. We view it as, you know, a part of us, something that's very, very core to us. It's like a part of our identity. When actually, when you really think about roles, because they come and go, and because they change and evolve through our work lives and our personal lives, it's actually a bit more like this. It's something that we're holding on to, something that we're doing for the time being. And we often forget this part, that when we let go of a role, there's still less and things, and it goes back into the bottom and goes up to the top and feeds into our new role. So remembering this whole idea that your role is something that you're doing, something that you're kind of identity that you're kind of wearing for the moment, but it's not this sort of core of who you are. It's sort of a really important thing, I think, and that we need to, if we look at our roles and sort of examine them and think about how they stretch it over the long term, we start to get a bit more distance from it. We start to get a bit more of an idea of maybe if that role serves us, or we want to change things up, or if we want things to stay the same. So we're going to explore that idea a little bit now. So let me just go back to sheets here. So what I'd like to do is we're going to one more page closer back. We're going to explore a few possible future steps. Rather like you all do, please, is get a sheet of paper out, and you're going to turn it horizontal. So it's going to be like this. So turn it horizontal, and in your bottom left corner here, I'd like just to draw a little island, just a little curve, and draw a little, your classic house, tiny little house on there in your bottom left hand corner. That's a little house there, and then just do some curves showing some water going across like that. Okay, so please to grab your paper, grab some pen, and just draw this on your paper, making sure it's a bit turned horizontal. So just give you, say, a minute or so to do that. Francesco, do you mind sticking some music on just for a minute while everyone gets to hear?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. This little house here with some water going across, and this is going to be your sheet where I want you to imagine that you are 6 months in the future. So it's 6 months down the line. There's 6 months in the future, and everything's exactly the same. So your roles are exactly the same. You don't have to drop any apples down into the compost. Your roles are exactly the same. What do you kind of notice about that? What's it like now that everything's just exactly the same? How do you feel? What feelings are kind of coming to mind? And what's working for you? Is this like good? Are you feeling happy that things are exactly the same? Are you ecstatic? Write those down, and what doesn't work. So the idea here is you're going to just reflect on what things would look like if they're exactly the same as 6 months down the line. And you're basically going to use this as a big kind of brain dump for that. So when you think about your roles that are exactly the same, what does life look like now? And just kind of brain dump, write down all your different thoughts, what you like, what you don't like, and fill this paper up basically on how you feel and what you notice now that the situation is the same. Your roles are all exactly the same. So we'll put some music on for 5-6 minutes. And I'd like you just to fill this page with your brain dump of how you feel, what you like, what you don't like now that it's 6 months in the future and things are exactly the same. Is there any questions on that? All right, Francesco, you stick some music on, please. And we'll say until 22 to fill your page. Okay, that's time to have you all looking back this way, please. So just explored our sort of status quo. What did you notice about it? How did you feel? What was working for you? What wasn't working for you? So now we're going to look at the exact opposite of that. So let's get another sheet of paper out. And again, turn it horizontal. And here we're going to imagine that everything's changed. So for this, we're going to draw on our bit of paper. We're going to have some water going along the bottom. And because we're deep in the unknown, we're going to have a bit of a UFO going on here. So I'm going to do that by just drawing a oval and a curve like that. A ring around it. And a little oval at the bottom. And some circles. I'm going to stick a question mark in there. So draw this out, your water along the bottom, and your UFO to represent that you're deep into the unknown here. So just give you a minute to do that. No worries, Rob. We're just imagining a future of everything changed. You just want to draw this and try to walk through it. In fact, if everyone looking back here, please going to walk you through this next part here. So the idea with this one is just like the page before, this is going to be a brain dump. Could you mind pausing the music, please, Francesco? Thanks very much. This is going to be a brain dump here. So again, you're going to imagine that you're 6 months in the future, but this time everything has changed. So all of your current roles, they're gone. They've all disappeared. They've all moved on. And I want you to think, if all those roles were gone, what would you sort of replace them with? What new roles would they have? So, for example, I'm, director of WorkVisible Studios. If I was no longer that, what would I be doing instead? What would that look like? What new roles would I have? And then ask yourself, okay, well, how do you feel about that? Now that role's gone, you've got something new going on here. How do you feel about that? And again, what works for you in this situation? What's working well? What do you like about these changes? Is there anything of benefit that you're not getting at the moment? And also, what doesn't work? what do you not like about this new unknown world that you dove into? So we'll give you 5 minutes to have a little think about that. About 6 months in the future, everything's changed. All of your roles have gone. What would you replace them with? And how do you feel about that? What's working? What's not? So to have some music on, Francesco, and again, there's going to be brain dump writing, all of that here. All right, so have you all looking back this way, please. So we've looked at the status quo, looked at everything's changed. Now we're going to have a little bit of a look at the middle road. Just because of time, I'll just walk through this and then give you a chance to do it. So for this setup, we're going to have our water along the bottom again, new sheet of paper, and we're going to have our mountain peeking out of the water. There's just some triangles with some zigzags. Is all you need for a mountain. And this one is all about splitting the difference between the two. So again, it's 6 months in the future. And I want you to imagine that you got to kind of choose this one. So look at the current, if things stayed the same, if things were completely different, what if you got some choice over it? What roles would you keep, or how would your role develop? What role would you leave? What role would you kind of throw in the bin? And what opportunities are there? What things can you think of to take you closer to this version of things? This version where you're having a bit of a say for what your roles are. What can you do? Simple things you can do to go towards the roles that you want to have, that have more of what you want, and what can you do to start to leave behind the roles that you don't want to have? And again, this will just be a brain dump here, writing all of these down. So it will give you just 5 minutes to do that. Think about 6 months in the future, look at both your status quo and your complete change. Look at both of them and say, what would you like to keep? What would you like to remove from both of these, and create your middle path? Have some music on again, please, Francesco. All right, everyone. So you've explored what were things like in the status quo, if everything changed, and also the middle path. So just not got very long left. If some people would just like to quickly share some of the things they found or discovered when they were doing that.
I'll go. One thing I noticed in the trend between like everything staying the same and then changing was my degree of control, or like what hand I had to play in those changes. Help, like, made me see like, excuse me, where I'm, building towards a stable future. My current role is a little unstable right now, but if everything's changed, it's also unstable. But if everything changed, like, I was okay with that instability. So why am I not okay with it here? So just trying to shift my mindset a little bit of letting go, I guess.
Interesting. That's interesting that you found that the things were unstable in the status quo as well, but in the future it didn't seem so scary. A really interesting takeaway. Thanks for that. All right, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I think we're just going to have to wind the session down now. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming along. I hope you gained some insight out of that. I find it really useful to do that, to look at what would happen if things stayed the same, or if everything changed, and then where can you sort of meet in the middle to bridge those two gaps. So I think, Charlie, you've got a couple of things you want to shout out about as well.
Yes, thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Francesco. I absolutely loved that session. I love the co-facilitation, the drawing, the music. it was so thought-provoking and valuable, and I really, really loved it. And it got me really thinking about like what I really value and how that, where I see myself going, like in terms of like what I love doing and what I love about my career and things like that. So thank you really very much to you both, and also to Gemma for helping create it as well. If you would, if you love this workshop and you'd like us to run a version that helps support your teams or anyone that you work with, please contact myself or Marcus. Our websites are available in the chat, and if you would like some support in visualizing your strategies, your visions, or your product roadmaps, speak to Marcus and the WorkVisible Studios team, as they are absolutely amazing at doing this kind of work. But if you would like to learn more about growing yourself to be a better leader, a better human, a better coach, then please speak to us at AWA. And I really hope to see you all again soon at an AWA meetup. In the future, we'll be recording it, and we'll edit out all the bits to do the mural and breakout rooms, and we'll be on our YouTube channel, and I'll share that on our meetup site. But thank you all for joining us, and I wish you all the best of luck with your day and the rest of your week. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
Marcus, can I have a look at the?
Yes, I'm just about to.
Thank you very much.
Find it for you here somewhere. Yep.
Again, visible.
There you are.
So it's the exact same one as in the mural. Okay.
Also in the mural, you may need to just screenshot that. So there's still the link in the chat. So just go there and screenshot it. But yeah, it's basically the same one, just without the words written on it.
All right, great. Then I'll just go to the mural. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks very much, guys.
Bye-bye. Awesome
Bye.
session. Thanks for the music, Francesco, especially. Bye-bye.
Glad you enjoyed. Thank you, everyone.